What's going on, guys? My name is Serge Drobin, and I'm here with you today at Fagan's Fretboard Academy. If you want lessons, I have a link in the description below. And today's lesson, we're going to be talking about how to make your economy picking 10 times faster, and also how to blend it with regular alternate picking. That's what we're going to talk about today. Let's get the definitions of economy picking correctly and alternate picking correctly before we go into this topic today. Essentially, alternate picking is what I would normally do if I'm just picking between all the strings. So I have another video on this. For example, if I'm doing something that's even notes per string, and I'm just picking up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, okay? If I'm doing economy picking, I would rather use this more for something with an uneven amount of notes. So I'll use 3 notes on the same frets. Something like that, okay? Now you might see in this pattern that I just did, it almost looks like I sweep picked through the strings. That's because that's essentially what economy picking is just sweep picking, but alternate picking combined. It's kind of a hybrid, if you will, of the two exercises. So today's pattern that I'm going to show you is not very melodic, but it is something that helped me get a lot of speed out of economy picking. Now, before I get into the actual pattern, I want to say that economy picking, unlike tremolo picking, which I have another lesson on, your wrist is kind of out away from the guitar, Eddie Van Halen style, giving you the mobility to get the openness of your wrist, so you don't have to go side to side, but rather forward and backwards. Remember, because this is the motion that we're doing. So rather than this motion where you're completely free from the guitar, in order to get the speed from economy picking, I like to move my wrist much closer to the guitar, almost resting it on the guitar, but as you can see, my wrist is still free from the guitar, so I'm not resting like this trying to do it. I'm still away from it, but more so my palm is resting on the back of the bridge right here. I find this personally to be the easiest position to do most of these speed techniques from, because unfortunately when you're too far away from the guitar, while you have the speed portion of it, it's hard to get the control on the pick, in my opinion. Of course, figure out what's going to work best for you, but these are just my opinions from the experience of doing this. Okay, so the pattern that I'm going to show you is basically going to start on the 7th fret, the 8th fret, and the 10th fret. Now the reason I'm going to do these 3 frets is so I can be symmetrical with my hands. So one thing I would advise against when doing these really fast kind of speed techniques is actually using your ring finger and your pinky together. If possible, I would avoid this, as these are your 2 weakest fingers. So basically, if you try to move them on their own, one of them is going to move or they're going to be weaker than the other. So my recommended suggestion for any kind of speed lick that you're going to play, I would try to use your 1st, 2nd, and 4th finger, or your 1st, 2nd, and 3rd finger, but never these 2 together, unless the exception would be if I have to play literally 4 different notes on a string. In that case, if I have to stretch, I would end up using all 4 fingers. So there is an exception to the rule, but I do find that it's much easier to be sloppy when using these 2 fingers together if you don't have to. So if you can avoid it, I would make the stretch to either 1, 2, 3, or rather 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, like that. You have a lot more control over these notes. So here's the pattern. I'm going to play it slow, and we're going to use the same frets, just up all the strings for each pattern, okay? So they're going to be in groups of 3 or 6s, all right? So first, let's just get the notes on the 7th, 8th, and 10th fret. Here we go. I'm going to do some back and forth. I'm starting on the E string, A string, D string, A string, D string, G string, D string, G string, B string, G string, B string, E string. Let me keep this in mind here. When I'm economy picking, okay, try, even with your upstrokes, try to avoid actually coming out away from the strings, okay? You want to really keep it right inside the string. So every single pick stroke you make should nearly hit the next string, if not actually hit the next string, okay? So everything is a stopping point, all right? So if I'm picking the A string, I'm raking into either the E string on an upstroke or the D string on a downstroke, okay? So keep that in mind because that's how you get the actual speed portion out of this. Rather than doing an upstroke and coming away from the string, this time you want to be right inside the string for either direction. And this is why my hand is almost essentially flat on the guitar rather than pointed out away from me, because the only way for me to achieve this is by having the flat hand. Okay, so here's the pick strokes again. Starting on the E string, we're going to go down, up, down, economy pick. See that? I landed on the A string already. And then I go down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the D string, down, up, down. And I should land right on the G string, okay? And now once I do this, I'm essentially going to go to the next string, this time the A string, and repeat the same pattern, okay? So think of it in 3 portions so that way it doesn't feel overwhelming when you go to play it. So I'm going to go, again, here's the first part. Okay, then I'm going to start the next part of the pattern on the A string and repeat the same thing. Down, up, down, and then go to the D string, down, up, down, up, down, up, onto the G string now with a downstroke, down, up, down. Okay, so here's the first 2 parts of the pattern. Okay, then I'm going to go to the D string, do the same thing on the next set of strings. And then the G string, do the same thing. So you should end on a downstroke for this, okay? The pattern's basically a copy-paste. Once you got it on 3 strings, you know it all the way through. So here's the whole thing. Alright, so let's talk about turning it around now. When I turn it around, it's basically the same thing I played going up but backwards. So now you're going to focus on raking your pick with upstrokes into the string, okay? So this is the momentum that you want to have when you're doing the descending portion of this, okay? So we're going to start on the high E string, same frets and everything. When I do the descending part of this pattern, I'm actually going to start it with an upstroke, okay? I'm going to go on the E string, up, down, up, rake it right into the B string. Then we're going to go again with an upstroke, up, down, down, into the G string, up, down, up. Now this is the only time that we're really going to start a new string with a downstroke on this, and that's when we switch back up a string. So then we're going to go to the B string, down, G string, up, down, and then D string, up, down, up. So if you notice the trend on this, we're essentially just literally doing up downs for almost every single part of this pattern. Almost every part, okay? So here's the first part of the pattern, and I realize that there's so many different pick strokes going on here that you might have to just rewind this video and watch it again until you get it. But once you memorize the first 3 strings, you have the pattern. Then you just copy and paste it on the next 3. So again, I'm going to emphasize that and then play it again on these 3 strings. And then I go to the B string, and then copy paste that to the G string. Then to the D string on a downstroke. Okay, and that's the whole pattern. So here we have the whole thing. So every time we did this pattern, we switched basically between economy picking and just regular alternate picking. Now, some people might find this debatable. They'll just say, hey, the whole thing is economy picked. Fair enough, if that's how you see it. It could be kind of seen both ways on this. For me personally, I see economy picking as just straight sweep picking. So if you're ending on upstrokes into downstrokes, I don't consider it the same. But some people might beg to differ. Either way, this entire thing is essentially building speed. The faster you can get this pattern up to speed and minimize these movements on your right hand, you'll be able to go as fast as you possibly want to very quickly. The key to the right hand on this is relaxing as much as possible, okay? So once you get the notes down and you really got it muscle memory, Really just focus on relaxing this right hand to a point where you're barely thinking about it, and then you just want to relax it as much as possible. So there should be no tension at all in the wrist, okay? You really got to relax, and actually this pattern should feel very good to play, all said and done. With that being said, if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments below. I try to answer all of the comments, and I also hope you got a lot out of this lesson today. I greatly appreciate all of you for watching, and of course, if I've earned your subscription, thank you so much. I hope all of you have a great rest of your day.